The Loop is a theatrical improvisation phenomena based in the roots of delivering social services through food security, conversations to help people connect to services, and everything else in between. We get done.
As I drive by it, I always see a place where people who need to get help are getting helped. I also drive by it sometimes thinking it's a place that the people there need to go somewhere else to get help because it looks like they may need more help than what can be offered there. I've had people describe it to me as the East Hastings of Kamloops. I know some neighbors there. I know 2 people who live near there who don't appreciate it there just because of the ancillary problems that come from it, but they do realize the need, but they don't think maybe that there's a need, but it impacts their lives too.
And what do I do here? Well, the day could start off with plunging a clogged toilet, or it could be talking to a person who is a very wealthy person that would like to donate $10,000 to the organization. So I do a little bit of everything.
From the people I talk to, from the social media posts you see, and they can be very polarizing both ways, but from the people I speak with who I consider to be rational, reasonable people, that would be the definition of it. It's a place that's providing a need, but perhaps the powers that be should be stepping in and providing more of a need, whether that be referral to rehab services, mental health services, if it's not already happening there, and maybe to have professional staff on site to make sure. Also, the concern I've heard is that it needs to be sort of managed better so that the outside is not as, say, dysfunctionally looking, you'd say.
Operating a business next door to the Loop, we've had our business broken into. You can't even get past the Loop in terms of being a pedestrian on the sidewalk because the active drug use covers the sidewalk completely. And yeah, our business has definitely suffered. You know, we have seen a drop, and I mean, this has never been a good neighborhood. That's not anything new. Yeah. And so in 12 years, though, we've definitely seen that people are increasingly less likely to be interested in coming here than they were before, and it's specifically due to the visible presence on the street. And I think that's specifically because of the Loop and where it's specifically located.
12 days after I moved in, I was very nervous to move into this neighborhood. The Loop is right there. This neighborhood has a bad... I even went to the local community police station to find out what crimes had been committed in this area, to see what records they were, and they said, I'm sorry, we can't release that information. And I thought, why? Because I'm moving into this neighborhood. I would like to research the neighborhood. No, you can't do that. Yeah, so when we see people walking down the street, which is lots of times, it's like a parade, and they just, you can just tell they're casing people's houses, they're looking in everybody's yard, they'll come up and go into everybody's bins. You live in a hyper state of fear here. Like every night, everybody's constantly hear beeps from everybody making sure the car is locked at night. I check my door like 2 or 3 times. You know, I check it at 9. Oh, did I lock the front door? I'll go check it again at midnight, because you live in a hyper state of fear here. And that's just the way it is.
The ones that frustrate me the most are the ones that have a lot of power and influence in town and stir the pot of the middle class and get them, the working class, get them all worked up and fearful. That's what poor people are for, scare the shit out of you, right? So they get targeted, right? And because we're affiliated with them, yeah, we get targeted.
I came by here the other day and they had a little hose out here, yeah. And a girl had no shirt on top, was naked on top with her back to the road, but a guy was hosing her down and she was having a shower right there. Is that the best that we can do? No. Is that where we're at? Because for the neighborhood, this is an eyesore and we all hate it.
I don't know what more can be done for these people. I'm doing everything in my power to do it, but right. I know that thank you for your concern about that, because there are obviously ways of dealing with it.
We have to do better. There's got to be something better. Can we not have, you know, like chemical toilets strategically placed all over
Perhaps,
the place.
Right? Wouldn't that be
That's
great?
interesting that you should mention that. You should note that. I will actually talk to Glenn about getting a better shower facility here so that people don't have to do that.
Like
because
if
it
it's a
would be better.
possibility, I'd rather see them shower in there.
I've been coming out to the Loop since last fall, late last fall. Many people volunteer here, just sweeping outside, cleaning up. And obviously, people have to do their creature maintenance and such. We're planning on painting the outside of it to refurbish and everything, and keep it so that the people actually survive here, because it's not a good scene sometimes that the bad things happen and there's drug use that I'm hoping is not an eternal thing. I mean, who would ever even do that forever? But I mean, we fall down, we get up, right? So, but obviously the problem with opiates is a bit challenging because it's every time you do it, it's damaging you, but the effects of it cause you to be alleviated of the pain. So it's a hard thing for people to overcome, but some people do. So I'm thinking being patient with these people they're worth it.
You know, you can't really understand the complexities of the lives of people unless you have some kind of like first-hand contact. So whether that means you visit here, even for 15 minutes, and maybe you see things differently. You volunteer here, because sometimes, you know, the most radical thing you can do is be introduced to somebody who you don't know, who has a completely other view of the world, and just sit there quietly and listen and start to have a dialogue without screaming and yelling.
Obviously, this is one of the places where there's the most troubled people that come here. So obviously there's going to be talk about that you know, might be negative in pointing out, you know, well, man, these people are, you know, but I do know that the love that we have to have for one another has to prevail. These are God's children just as much as the rest of us. And so they've suffered some things, and some of them get stuck in traps and, you know, in ruts, but we have to fight our way out of it. And the means to do that is honest work. And there's many people here in my short time that I've been here that I've seen start to doing wonderful things. They've been planting planters and people sweeping, and like, I'm not the only one who works here. All the people here do at least something for themselves.
There's a lot of lonely people in the world, and that is a community center of sorts for them. And if you look beyond the outside, which looks desperate, there's a community there, and I can see why some people will want to be there. It's hard all around.
I would love to see everyone that comes in here that is unhoused find a safe, quiet place to live. Everyone that has a substance use challenge that wants to get treatment to get that treatment and get sober. I'd like to see everybody here that wants to reconnect with their kids, their moms, their spouses, get family back together again. So all those things would be great. And even the folks that are not unhoused, and the folks that don't have a substance use challenge, and the people who have a place to live, I would like them to be able to not freak out about the lack of food they have in their fridge, because they come here too. They come here to eat, they come here to free shop, they come here for clothes. So yeah, it's there's a lot of, you know, people struggling in town.
They are trying to serve the immediate symptom of the problem, which, hey, like, all the power to them. You know, hungry people need food, but their capacity to actually affect change on a broader societal scale is not there, and nor will it ever be there. You know, it's like that's just not in the scope of what a couple people can do in a little, you know, decrepit building on a street corner in Kamloops. Like, that's, if you're looking to the Loop to provide an avenue to broad cultural change and, you know, systemic generational poverty and systemic generational, you know, abuse and trauma, like, you're not going to find it at the Loop. The Loop is treating a symptom. They're providing food and a place to hang out and a feeling of safety for a vulnerable population.
We are a completely volunteer-driven organization, with few exceptions. So the exceptions are when we get funding to hire students over the summer with the federal government, and sometimes when we get other pilot projects. It's not like we don't want to pay staff. Yes, we'd love to have paid staff, but it's not an easy thing to get funding. And when we began, we had to begin. when I say we had to begin, we knew that there was a huge gap in services on the North Shore, and people with lived experience came to me and said, we have to do something. And so it just happened that that week, and this was before we knew we had this building to rent, TD Bank called me out of the blue and said, would you like a credit line, a Visa card, and an overdraft check protection? And I said, hey, and that's how the loop began.
And if you speak to him, you'll see why he does what he does. And when you speak to him and say, well, why don't you, defer to the authorities, the city government, and work with Ask Wellness and work with CMHA. And I think there's a distrust on his part that they're doing it not at the personal level he's doing it, not at the, not as much would get done because he takes his own vehicle and he shepherds people across the city to appointments, to doctor's appointments. I ran into him a few weeks ago, putting someone in a car downtown, and he had to take him up to grab something at the pharmacy. I don't know if that's being done at other levels, but he sure is doing that. His volunteers are doing that. I think the problem, some of the people who deal with, like I said, the ancillary problems, maybe some, in the area, is that maybe they don't think that he and his staff have the expertise that is needed to deal with the higher complex needs of some of the people using the place. And I think this is where someone like Glenn Hilke might lack compassion for people who are impacted by this. You can have all the compassion you want for someone who has addiction problems, mental health problems, trauma, abuse, but you can't ignore the domino effects that has on the neighborhood. They too have a right. They have rights. They're also affected.
We are 3 doors down from Ask Wellness, which is also known as the AIDS Society of Kamloops, and they've been operating programs for street entrenched populations of all kinds for over 20 years. The first safe injection site in Kamloops was basically next door. Ask has daily outreach workers that work day and night. Anytime we've ever had a challenge in our neighborhood or in our restaurant with somebody who's experiencing a mental health crisis, someone who's in a position of vulnerability, somebody who's suffering, there's somebody who is available to help us immediately at any time, and they are incredible at it. As a counterpoint, I would not say that's how the Loop operates. I would say the Loop operates in confrontation to the broader, neighborhood and the people within it. Generally, concerns around how people are, how, let's say, clients, well, I mean, they like to use the word client, but how clients of the Loop are seen to be operating in the community is at a double standard with what everybody else is expected in terms of decorum. When it comes to accountability for those sorts of things, there's certainly not an outreach worker there to come and help. There's certainly not anybody there to help address concerns. And any concerns brought up are generally met with the attitude of, well, these people are suffering more than you, so your concerns are not legitimate. And I would say, they're not wrong in that.
It got to the point where I mentioned earlier about social media, where you have the polarizing. You have one side that there's a couple of Facebook pages, you've probably seen them, where they're very cruel, very vile, very, bum, get a job, what the hell, you're stealing all the shopping carts and I gotta carry my food to the car, that kind of stuff. No compassion. But then you have, the pendulum swings too far the other way into some people, where if a business has the temerity to say, oh my God, my window got smashed again, instead of saying that's too bad, I've seen people online and in person yell at the business or write against the business to say, how dare you, they have problems. Well, that is a victim too.
Thinking pragmatically, it'll be interesting because what the Loop is doing is highlighting this need, not just through our city and through our neighborhood, but everywhere. It's highlighting the fact that there is a huge need for something to be done for the people that the Loop is servicing and other agencies are failing to service. And really, it'll be interesting to see whether them making such a visible example, well, it does hurt my business, could possibly incite, more decisive action in the future. Hard to say.
If we're going to work on solutions, we have to all agree to just hang the ego up at the door, get in the room, lock the door, and agree that we're not going to come out until we've all made concessions and we've all come up with a plan. and a timetable. And so, you know, in the meantime, all we can do is just, you know, respond to the people that love this place, the people who are confused about this place, or the people that hate this place, one at a time, and try and help them understand, you know, how hard life is for people that come here, and that some of it is just out of their control.